I don't know. I think we'll have to take a look. We might have to put DOGE on Elon. You know what DOGE is? DOGE is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?
The president was asked the question, would you look at deporting Elon Musk? And the president answered in the affirmative that he would have to look at it. I find this difficult to report on and follow, John. I mean, Elon has talked in interviews. It was referred to in Walter Isaacson's 2023 biography that Musk had taken the oath of citizenship in 2002 in Los Angeles County at the fairgrounds. So he's a US citizen. So that's the kind of volatility of the relationship that's weighing on the stock. The EV and incentives part of the big, beautiful bill, it seems disconnected and separate. And on that point, at least, Elon Musk has been a lot more consistent. Elon Musk has said and maintained for some time that he'd be fine if they did away with those direct consumer incentives, because he's felt that Tesla has a competitive cost base, it has pricing power, and it would be a great advantage to Tesla over other American automakers if those incentives went away. Obviously, the president's statements, not just this morning, but in prior weeks and months, would contradict that.
Well. What's going on, everybody? It's Professor Zeus, and I'm back with another video. If you're new to this channel, I appreciate you for stopping by. Go ahead and hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. We are taking the humble route, so, join us for the ride. As you guys can see, it's like, who knew this day was going to come, right? Who could have fathomed that we would see a world where Elon and President Trump are, now feuding? I personally, I've been covering, Trump and Elon for this past 6 months. So where we are currently is, I don't know. I mean, this public fallout has just been so interesting. I mean, they used to be political allies, and now, they're going at each other for, different reasons. And I think the line in between the sand is kind of like the big, beautiful bill, which is what I'd like to talk to you guys about. And as you saw in the video too, a reporter asked President Trump if he's willing to deport Elon Musk, which, honestly, that's crazy enough. But, we'll discuss all of this. He even said he was even thinking about having what Elon created, DOGE, to actually look into Tesla and all the businesses that Elon got going on. So, we're going to unpack all the, Elon's criticism of the bill, and just the risks behind this unfortunate ending of a bromance. But, to sum it all up, or to start off, Elon and, President Trump were kind of like an unlikely duo. You know how you have buddy cops like Lethal Weapon or Rush Hour, like polar opposite type people who come together to make something happen. That's kind of like Trump and, Elon, because Elon, he essentially gave President Trump $300 million in his campaign, and, that helped secure the Republican victory. And in return, President Trump gave Elon a huge role in his administration, appointing him to the leading DOGE. Obviously, a controversial initiative that was aimed at slashing federal spending by up to $1 trillion, looking for waste, fraud, and abuse, and different things like that. And Elon even came to one conservative conference or whatever, and had a chainsaw and all that. But it's like the honeymoon didn't last, right? By May, a lot of people were seeing that there's a lot of cracks in this relationship, right? Elon had stepped down from, DOGE after just 130 days, saying, oh, I want to, focus on Tesla. I want to focus on SpaceX. Then he went on Twitter and he criticized President Trump about the big, beautiful bill, also saying that he was on, Jeffrey Epstein's list that they don't want to release for some reason. And then obviously, again, his criticism of the big, beautiful bill, which is essentially a massive tax and spending package that, is kind of like the cornerstone of, President Trump's legislative agenda. And Elon's calling it disgusting not even just disgusting, but a disgusting abomination, that would essentially balloon the national debt by trillions. So this isn't really just a disagreement on policy, but it was also a direct challenge to President Trump's vision. You can understand where Elon's coming from, because he was hired to root out the waste, fraud, and abuse. And then now it seems like the big, beautiful bill is just going to increase government spending, which Elon was hired to reduce. So you can see how, this is kind of interesting, because obviously some people are saying, it's on principle. And, again, the bill could see 2.4 to 5 trillion deficit. And that's huge, right? And a lot of people are also saying, Elon's super critical because of his self-interest. Like, the bill cuts a 7,500 electric vehicle tax credit that would essentially benefit Tesla. But Elon has also said that, we can go away with the bill. I don't even care. But whatever the reason, Elon hasn't held back, and he's even threatening to fund primary campaigns against Republicans who support the bill. So you can only assume that, things are getting really more serious, right? And then President Trump, obviously he's not taking any of this criticism lightly. He suggested, DOGE could obviously be turned against Elon and his companies. I think he had a Truth Social where he said perhaps we should have DOGE take a good hard look at this. Big money to be saved. And President Trump even implied that Elon's businesses like Tesla and SpaceX rely so heavily on government contracts and subsidies that without them, Elon could close up shop and head back to South Africa. And that's a crazy thing to say. And President Trump, he doubled down in a press conference, obviously in the clip, saying, DOGE is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. So that was kind of like a public threat to use government's power, because DOGE is a government agency, to target Elon's empire, which has received an estimated $38 billion in federal benefits in the last few years, right? And the markets obviously took notice. Tesla stock has plummeted 14% in a single day, wiping out 150 billion in market value. Elon got back on Twitter, denying again the claim that he needs the EV tax credits. And he said he was fine, with cutting those subsidies and different things like that, as long as he said the bill's mountain of disgusting pork was slashed too. Again, it's just been an interesting turn of events for people who seem so close to each other. But just looking at the bigger picture, right? DOGE was supposed to be about fiscal responsibility, right? But its actual savings was supposed to be like 1 trillion, which is now, they actually say, like, I believe 175 billion. It really fell short between 1 trillion and 175. That's a huge gap of what he was supposed to accomplish, right? And a lot of people are arguing that DOGE caused a lot of chaos with a lot of mass layoffs and cuts to programs like foreign aid, some of which reversed after a lot of legal challenges. Even former presidents Obama and George Bush II have come out and spoke on President Trump and slashing USAID and saying how such a bad idea was. And at the same time, the big beautiful bill, with all the massive tax cuts and border security spending, contradicts Elon's vision of a leaner government, right? That's why Elon wanted to be a part of the Trump administration, because he felt like government needed to be more lean. But now with the bill, it's like you're going to bloat the government even more. So it's hard to really ignore the irony. Elon, who once called himself Trump's first buddy, is now accusing him of fiscal recklessness. And it just begs the question, right? Does money really bring you power? You got to think about it. Elon has the money, President Trump got the power. But whose side would you really be on? You know what I mean? Because now at this point, how this rift is going to affect their legacies is monumental, right? Now Elon is alienating the Republican base that he essentially just gained, and now at the same time he disavowed the previous base of his customers for Teslas, which are Democrats, because they love EVs, right? And at the same time, President Trump is risking losing support of tech billionaires who are supporting him, right? So this fallout could affect Tesla, SpaceX, NASA, which heavily relies on Elon Musk's SpaceX's Dragon, the spaceship. So this feud, this rift, it's not just a spectacle. It can reshape the political and economic landscape, right? So again, where does this leave us? This feud is a clash of titans with a lot of big implications, right? Is Elon genuinely fighting for fiscal responsibility, or is he protecting his business interests, right? Is President Trump's DOGE threat a strategic move, or is he just trolling, right? And what does this say about the state of American politics, where billionaires and presidents can turn government agencies into, personal battlegrounds? I try to lay out the facts to the best of my abilities, but I guess it's your turn to weigh in. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are you on Elon's side, or are you on President Trump's side? Or are you on your own side? Man, if you like this deep dive, if you like this breakdown, go ahead and hit subscribe. Also hit that like button, hit that bell notification so you always get notified when I drop a new video. And never forget, it's Universe. Information, application, execution. Go ahead and subscribe, man. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. Appreciate you guys.